Hey, friends, we're live on TuneIn and YouTube. What a busy day. The Menendez brothers are sitting on the edge of their bunks right now. Tomorrow, the judge will hear arguments for a resentencing of their current sentence, life without the possibility of parole, for the 1989 shotgun murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. They've claimed that the killings were in self-defense after Lyle Menendez confronted their father about sexually abusing his younger brother. Thanks to Ryan Murphy's series Monsters and renewed fervor on TikTok from a whole new generation of sympathizers, fans, really, some high-profile supportive celebrities like Kim Kardashian, Eric and Lyle are hoping that the judge rules in their favor and they get the go-ahead for a resentencing. Then it goes up to the parole board. Then it goes to the governor's desk. The boys' defense attorney, Mark Garagos, and supporters cite their model citizenship behind bars, assistance to inmates with disabilities. They've completed college courses, a green space beautification project that they undertook. On a lighter note, they won the prison pickleball tournament. Weird, but true. I guess they're playing a lot of pickleball. But who stands in their way at this point? The new Los Angeles DA, Nathan Hochman. He has a list of 16 demands that the boys need to meet before he could endorse the idea of them walking, chiefly that they're, this account of theirs that they killed their parents in self-defense. He says that's a lie. The murders were premeditated. And right now we welcome the man of the hour, DA Nathan Hochman. Right now, you got a lot on your schedule, Mr. District Attorney. Thank you so much for taking time for us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Let's start light. I know you had Mother's Day dinner last night. Two different people texted me from the club where you were having dinner saying you're not going to believe the legal power we have in the room. We got the Hochman table in one area of the room and Brian Friedman, the power lawyer of Baldoni and Blake Lively, but also represents 27 family members of Menendez in the same room. Did you say hello? Did you send something nice to the table?
Quite candidly, I didn't realize that he was in the room until well into the dinner. And at that point, it was Mother's Day, and I was focused on both my mother and my wife, mother to my children. So I decided not to spend any time with Brian Friedman.
Didn't send him any oysters, nothing. But anyway, have you met before? You know him. I mean, you guys know each other, I'm sure.
I have met him. And again, to the extent that the Menendez family, who I've met with for over 3 hours, I'm the first district attorney ever to have met with the Menendez family members. They're passionate. They have a perspective. They want the Menendez brothers out. And I appreciate that. Their attorney, Mr. Friedman, the only issues I have with him is when he goes ahead and he makes arguments that he knows are factually and legally inappropriate. He makes them in the press. Those arguments don't even show up in the written motions filed with the court. And even in a most recent written motion where they were trying to throw myself and the district attorney's office off the case, 4 of the 7 arguments that Mr. Friedman made didn't even make it into their motion. And when the judge finally pushed Garagos and said, "Are we going forward with your motion?" He says, "You know what, Judge? We're going to withdraw that motion."
Yep.
So again, if you want to argue the facts and the law, I'll argue them all day long, anywhere you'd like to argue them. If you want to engage in personal attacks, it's shameful for a defense attorney or a lawyer representing a family to reduce the very important debate into a bunch of scurrilous personal attacks.
Well, I'm gonna put a pin in the family for 1 second. Let's go to where we were last Friday. 3 days ago, you spoke yourself at Friday's oral arguments. Were you surprised that the judge granted a resentencing hearing for the brothers, or did you expect that this would happen?
We laid out for the judge the legal and factual arguments why the judge should allow the district attorney's office to withdraw its motion for resentencing. Now, separate and apart from the district attorney's motion, the judge had initiated his own motion for resentencing. We said that if you want to go forward on your motion, that's fine. But the prior motion filed by the prior DA left off like 75% of the key facts that show that right now the Menendez brothers are not ripe for resentencing. And the reason I say it that way is I'm not saying never. There may come a time when the Menendez brothers have unequivocally and sincerely admitted and come clean with all the lies, cover up, and deceit that they've engaged in for the last 30 years. When and if they do, they should be considered for resentencing. So what we say is not never, but not yet at this point.
All right. Well, first, will you be representing L.A. County in the courtroom tomorrow, or is someone else doing that? Are you back in court, or someone else handling it?
There will be other lawyers. I will certainly be available if they need me to make any particular arguments.
All right. So you'll be in the room.
I'll either be in the room or I'll be working on a whole lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
The other 180,000 cases that the DA's office deals with every year.
Okay. So you mentioned it, but your greatest objection is that there are 16 lies you say the brothers told 30 years ago that they haven't copped to, that they attempted to coerce ex-girlfriends and friends into giving false testimony, that they committed these murders out of self-defense. If they copped to all 16, would you then support resentencing, given the exemplary behavior and low risk to the public assessment they've received?
So two answers to that. Yeah, if they unequivocally and sincerely finally come clean, it would certainly be a huge factor that we would consider in deciding whether or not to either join the resentencing or not oppose it. But part of the problem now is that we got some new information that's come in. When Governor Newsom asked the parole board to do a new assessment of the Menendezes, they actually finished that assessment in the beginning of April, and we just got a copy of it. And sure enough, the Menendezes have gone from a risk rating of what's considered low to now moderate risk.
What
and
for?
What they focus on
what was
is
their sin? What did they do behind bars that went from low to moderate?
Well, here's what they did. For instance, I'll focus first on Eric Menendez. Eric Menendez, in January of 2025, when you would think you'd be on your best behavior because you're about to potentially go through a resentencing hearing, goes ahead and engages in illegal actions in the prison. One of the things he did is he brought in an illegal cell phone. And the reason an illegal cell phone is actually a big deal in a prison is that if you make a phone call in the prison, that phone call is always recorded, and they tell you it's being recorded. When you bring in a burner phone like Eric Menendez did, all of a sudden that is not a recorded conversation. You can say or do whatever you want on that. And the prison,
but don't they have like Zoom time and things? Don't they get the FaceTime with people? I mean,
it's all recorded.
There's 4 levels of security in that prison, 4 being the watch out, super dangerous, and they're at 2, which is like, go play pickleball for an hour, you're fine. I think each one of them, shares a room with like 5 other people, and they have like Dodgers posters on the wall. It's kind of not really prison. It doesn't, it's not the scary part.
Well, I mean, again, your movement is limited, but here's the important part. These board-certified psychologists that looked at the Menendez's risk rating, if they were to get out into society, said that the deceit and lies and rule violations that they have engaged in, if in the last year, for instance, Eric Menendez was involved with others in purchasing drugs in the facility.
He was?
He actually counseled people on how to engage in tax fraud. Lyle Menendez also got involved with cell phone violations. And this is pending the resentencing hearing when they know they're trying to be on their best behavior.
Will any of that be on the table, or are we looking at, the biggest situation here is, again, you said 16 lies they haven't copped to. There were 20. Yes. They did cop the big 4 lies. Eric and Lyle, initially lied on the 911 call about just discovering their parents' bodies. We know that not to be the case. They've copped to that. Eric and Lyle lied to the police and friends and the media that their involvement in the murders, they had no involvement. They've copped to that. They lied to the police and family, suggesting that it was a mafia hit, that's what happened. They've copped to that. Eric lied when he said he was afraid that his parents would kill him because his father's homosexual lover warned him that he was in danger 2 days before the murders. That was a bunch of crap. He copped to that. So the main sin here of murdering their parents and creating this story in a panic, they have copped to. So that's really what's on the table here. Do we think after 35 years... and 27 family members all saying Jose was a creep, let him out. I mean, we believe Jose was a. Do you believe Jose was a creep? That his father was, I mean, Roy Rossello came out from Menudo, said he was sexually assaulted at 14 years old by Jose Menendez. And if you do that to a 14-year-old, that's pretty sick. Why not your own 14-year-old?
So Billy, let me back up and deal with the lies that we're talking about. When you talk about the Menendezes copying to certain lies, here's what basically happened. They went ahead and they bought shotguns 2 days before the murders happened. They had a pre-planned alibi as to what they were supposed to do during the time of the murders. When they committed the murders, they engaged in basically staging it like a mafia hit, shooting their dad through the back of the head, their mom at point blank range as she lay bleeding on the floor after they reloaded a shotgun, and then shooting them in the kneecaps afterward to make it look like a mafia hit. For the next 6 months, they did not admit to this. In fact, they told their family, their friends, the media, the police, that somebody had shot their parents. It was the mafia. It was a drug cartel. And but for tapes coming out that they had made to their own psychologist, they would never have admitted to what went on. So then what happens is they needed a new defense. The defense couldn't be just that they shot their parents. They basically came up with a defense that on the night of August 20th, they believed their mother and their father were going to shoot them, so they had to shoot them first. We have shown how that self-defense defense is a lie that they have perpetrated for the last 35 years and have never come clean with.
They definitely, look, most people think they would have, had they gotten away with it, they never would have come forward and said, you know what, wait a minute, actually, we did. Yeah, but I propose this to you. Look, they lied out of the gate furiously, but any kid who's been sexually assaulted by a parent for years, and if it's true, allegedly that Eric from 8 to 18, is going to experience shame at overwhelming levels, not to mention be totally screwed up in the head. Is it your belief by any chance that they were never assaulted? Have you made up your mind that they were never assaulted by their father?
So I didn't have to make up my mind on that one way or the other, and I'll tell you why. When each of them testified at trial, they were asked, is the reason you shotgun your parents and murdered them because of the sexual abuse? Answer, no. Their attorney said the same thing. The reason they shotgunned their parents that night is that they believed their parents were going to kill them that night and they had to kill them first. That is the lie that they have perpetrated every day for the last 35 years. And we're saying if you want to finally get out, if you want to finally have a sentence which a jury came down on, and which was life without the possibility of parole, and now have a life with the possibility of parole sentence, we need you to exhibit full insights into your action, completely accept responsibility for not all the crimes you committed, but all the cover-up and the lies you told trying to justify those killings. Because until you do that, you have not shown that you are truly rehabilitated. If you're not truly rehabilitated, you continue to constitute a risk of danger to society. And if you need an example to see how this plays out, look at the case of Sirhan Sirhan, the killer of Robert F. Kennedy in 1968 in Los Angeles. He exhibited as many pro-parole factors as you could get. He was 77 in diminishing health. He had done all the rehab programs, all the education programs. He had the lowest in prison. He had the lowest risk score possible, lower than the Menendez's risk score. He had served 15 more years in prison than the Menendez is. And yet Governor Newsom reversed a grant of parole for Sirhan Sirhan, saying that because he had not completely shown insight into all his actions, he could not be trusted in society. And that's our point.
That's interesting because so many Kennedy family members were in support of Sirhan Sirhan getting out. He had tried 15 times. On the 16th time, the parole board recommends his release. And Newsom alone, like you said no. Would you, if you were governor, would you have overturned the parole board's recommendation, or would you have accepted it and let him go?
Well, if the standard is you need to show complete insight into your actions and that one factor can overcome a lot of the other factors, then Newsom basically followed the criteria in Sirhan Sirhan's case. It'll be interesting to see what he does in the Menendez case if the case does reach his desk. It's already there for clemency, but it'll be interesting if it gets there through the resentencing process as well.
Listen, look, you are no doubt a well-learned man when it comes to the law, and you told people you were going to follow the law, and that's it. I get it. But let's get to that family for a second. 27 family members, all but one who I think has passed away since, support the boy's release. That's powerful. All these family members support them getting out. You seem unmoved. You are totally unmoved. Why doesn't it seem that, if they believe this to be true about Jose Menendez, that's enough?
Because, and again, I spent time trying to understand their perspective and then went back to the facts and the law of the case. They don't deal with the facts of how the Menendez brothers have lied and continue to lie about their self-defense defense, about the fact that they got one of the girlfriends to try, or did say in court that the mother was trying to poison them, that they got another girlfriend to say that the dad was a violent rapist. They've engaged in these.
Yeah, no, they tried everything. They tried everything to get out of it. I mean, you admit first you're going to go to the death penalty, life without parole. I mean, they're facing a mountain of course, they're going to lie. I keep thinking about the shame. I think the numbers of people that live in shame of sexual assault from childhood, no one admits that. It takes some people
Billy,
10, 15 years to admit that.
This is the most important point in that response to that argument. You can make an excuse for the Menendezes back in the 1990s when they were young men in their 20s, by the way, by the time trial showed up. They're in their 50s now.
Yep.
At this point in their life, the excuse that they're young guys, young stupid guys, doesn't work. If you want them back out in society, they have to own the mistakes that they made, all of them, not just part of them. And you cannot expect anyone to go ahead and disregard the fact that the Menendez brothers in their 50s still refuse to own the facts that they lied about in their 20s. They've had 30 years to reflect on it, and apparently that has not moved them to own these additional lies. And that's where the problems of risk come in. They without this full insight, full rehabilitation, they continue to constitute a risk of violence. And that's ultimately what those board-certified psychologists came down with.
Do you think that they are a risk to the public? If you were at a restaurant and Lyle and Eric were in there, would you be worried for your safety?
Again, the risk to society is bigger than the restaurant risk. The risk to society, again, is one that looks at the entire series of potential situations that the Menendez brothers can be in. Right now, they're in a highly structured environment, a prison environment, and they're still breaking the rules. So that's why those board-certified psychologists say if they're willing to break the rules in a highly structured environment.
But a cell phone and a shotgun are two very different things.
Well, again,
if I'm in there for 35 years, I'm going to try to get a cell phone in every time.
And again, if you're pending resentencing, when a judge is going to consider the first time you can get released in 35 years, and you're still willing to take that risk of doing something illegal in a prison on the eve of your resentencing, then you wouldn't qualify to get out yourself because you would show you still don't have that insight. But when and if you did adopt that insight and you would show it, not just to me, but the judge, the parole board, and the governor, then Billy Bush should get out of prison as well.
I don't know if anyone, there's some that wouldn't agree with that. But anyway, you grew up a mile from the brothers in Beverly Hills, right? Didn't you grow up around the same neighborhood?
I grew up in Beverly Hills. And again,
not far from them, right?
Incredibly spurious arguments that were made about trying to get me off the case is that somehow I grew up in Beverly Hills and I went to the same high school years before the Menendez brothers went to that high school. The reason I say this is an absolute disgrace and desperate last-ditch attempt to try and get me off the case is that those arguments didn't even show up in the written recusal motion filed with the court. They were so meritless. So they play well for the media. They play well on a show like this. but they don't play well in
Well,
court
I'm
because
just
in
interested in
court
your
you have to engage in facts and law.
I'm just interested in your recollection of the time because Beverly Hills, it has its own police department. It's a safe. I don't remember. I mean, the idea of all these beautiful homes, this very safe neighborhood, and all of a sudden everyone's talking. Oh my God! Did you hear Kitty and Jose Menendez got shot? It's the mafia. Oh my God! Everybody's talking. Word spreads like wildfire. It must have been absolute terror at that time for you and your parents. Do you recall the time? Do you recall what you were feeling then?
So it turns out at that exact time in 1989, the murder was August 20th of 1989. I was engaged in a overseas travel, sort of a post clerkship travel. So I wasn't as intensely involved in the environment that the Menendezes were creating because of the murders that happened in Beverly Hills. But as far as it being obviously a
But your
sensational
parents
case,
were
it
there.
certainly was.
I mean, you talk to your parents on the phone. I'm sure you're traveling. They must have been horrified, right? They must have been like, holy, it's the mafia. We don't know what's going on. Before anyone has any information, it must have been true terror in a beautiful place like Beverly Hills.
Well, I think that's exactly what the Menendez brothers were hoping for by staging it like a mafia killing and then telling the police that the mafia were the ones that killed their parents. So it would completely throw the police off the scent of the Menendez brothers themselves and onto the mafia or a drug cartel.
You think it's unfair to say that, if you remember this happening to your beautiful neighborhood, there's no bee in your bonnet that you've held in there since 1989 because of what it did to the community?
Absolutely not. That's actually somewhat, again, if you know anything about the facts and law of recusal motions and when you can kick a district attorney or a lawyer for that matter off the case, this doesn't even get close, which is why they didn't even bother to put it in the written motion to the judge. And by the way, they then told the judge when the judge was about to rule to deny the motion, we withdraw the motion. So when I say that this was put out there 1000% for the press and not for the court, it is backed up by the fact of what actually happened in the court.
All right, well, I haven't heard it, but I just know that, I mean, your dad was a great tax lawyer, the great corporate tax lawyer, I believe, the great Bruce Hochman, a legend of the time, grew up in that area. Just remember connecting those dots. Now, Eric and Lyle could go free if they're granted clemency by Governor Newsom, right? I mean, this could be all off your plate in a blink. It could be in 10 minutes if he decided to do it. Have you spoken to the governor about his intentions to do this at any point?
I've not spoken to the governor. And by the way, the governor, from the day he entered office in 2019, every day, he could do it today, he could do it tomorrow, could have granted clemency. He has a unilateral constitutional power to do it. He doesn't need a hearing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
He has, certain criteria that are his criteria and his criteria alone, and it's not subject to appeal.
But if the judge grants resentencing, it goes to the parole board, which is like 3 people, right? It's just a handful of people on the parole board, right? And they say, okay.
The parole board is usually a 2-member parole board, and then if he brings it back to the main parole board, it's over 10 members.
This is a 1-2-1. So the judge says, okay, let's just play it out here. The judge says, let's grant them a resentencing. Bang, it goes to the one judge, sends it to the 2 parole board members. The 2 parole board members say, okay, let's resentence the brothers to time already served and let them out. Then it goes back to the 1, it goes to Newsom. Has he indicated that he will sign it if it comes to him? Do we know anything about what he might do at that point?
The only thing we know is that he asked the parole board to do this comprehensive risk assessment and to be ready to go through their own procedures.
Wasn't that a while ago? When is that? When do we get the results?
June 13th. It's all going to happen on June 13th.
June 13th. Okay, so if the resentencing over the next few days gets called, the parole board hears it when? How long would it take for them?
June 13th.
June 13th. So the earliest the boys would get out, the brothers get out, is at that point could be this summer, could be in June.
Yes, if it goes along the way you've described, and the governor, they get the grant of parole from the parole board, and the governor doesn't choose to deny, reverse, or modify it, they can most likely get out this summer.
So, I mean, after the resentencing, if it gets approved by the judge, then will you let it go after this? It's off your plate? Are you done with it?
Yeah, I mean, the district attorney's office still has a participation at the parole board level, but it's just that we're there to monitor the proceedings. If the parole board has any questions, we're certainly there to answer questions, but we play very, very little of an active role going forward.
All right. This is Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman. Your predecessor, George Gascon, recommended and filed for the resentencing hearing. He did this in October of 2024. At the time, he was 25 points behind you in the polls. You ended up crushing him. Was he throwing a Hail Mary based on the boys' sort of resurgent popularity thanks to like Ryan Murphy's series, Monsters, and like TikTok sympathy? Or did he really think this was a serious cause that he wanted to take up? What do you think? Politics?
If he thought it was a serious cause, he could have taken it up in February of 2024 rather than October 24th of 2024 when he was 25 points down and had no money in the bank, but wanted massive media attention, which is what he got by making the announcement at that point. In fact, he didn't even start working on the case till roughly October 1st. And as I experienced, to go through over 50,000 pages of transcripts, hundreds of hours of videotape testimony, thousands of pages of confidential prison files, and then speak to everyone certainly took me 3 months, and I was focused with a great team helping me. So yes, do I think that what he did was political? It was.
Yeah. Did you watch Monsters, by the way, the Ryan Murphy series?
I did not.
You didn't. So why do you think Eric and Lyle have resonated with people? I mean, especially this TikTok, the whole new generation, young kids are connecting to these guys. What do you think the reason is?
So I think that the reason is this case had everything in it. You know, it had murder. It had murder by sons against parents. It had allegations of sexual abuse. It had Beverly Hills. It had money. It had the Menendez brothers after they killed their parents buying Rolexes and fancy cars,
Yeah.
sitting courtside at Madison Square Garden to watch the Knicks play. I mean, it literally had a little bit of everything. And what's interesting is that I view this as a positive development because we've got now a different generation, a younger generation interested in a criminal case. So what I hope is that they don't stop with the Menendez case. And this sparks their interest in the criminal justice system. And we see them getting interested in all the cases or a lot of the cases in the system, which will only make the system that much better.
Huh. I would be interested in, a bunch of psychologists to talk about how many people were sexually assaulted as kids, and whether they weren't, doesn't mean that sort of resonates with people, because I think there's so much shame connected to it that, here they are saying it. And if anyone experienced that kind of thing, it just touches a nerve. You may think
and I
it's
think
strategy,
that's actually another positive development for the Menendez case, to the extent that it gives confidence for any sexual assault survivor to come forward and go through the very difficult process of identifying the person who victimized them and coming forward to law enforcement to do so. Then the Menendez cases, again, served a very positive force in our society.
Nathan Hochman, the L.A. County District Attorney, I really appreciate your time, and I know you got a big one tomorrow. The resentencing begins. We'll see what happens. But before I let you go, for all the people who see these crazy car chases in Los Angeles, like we turn on the TV locally, and it's like some idiot is taking off down the highway again. The cops are chasing him. We all stop what we're doing. We watch. I don't know any other city that has this but Los Angeles. Then we see the cops apprehend them. They're on the ground. We never see these people again. What happens to those people?
So those people generally get arrested. They get booked. They most likely
They're endangering thousands of lives.
Oh, yes. We will seek to put those people in prison for as long as the punishment comports with their crime. And that's why you don't see them again very often. Very often it's not their first time doing it. And this is where the justice system kicks into action and tries to make the streets ultimately safe for everyone else.
Nathan Hochman, thank you so much. Our DA here in LA County. Thank you for your service to the city. Appreciate your
My
time
pleasure.
too.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.